Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers winning streak comes to an end. Offense went cold. We'll talk about the game. We'll talk about the offense, and we'll talk about Justin Turner. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, 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 Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day, and remind you that we are free and available wherever we get podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And make it easy on yourself by subscribing in all those places so you never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Samperio, and today I will be going solo. My usual co-host, Jeff Snider, um, had some family in town, so I gave him the night off. He covered for me last week when I was on vacation, and it wasn't that fun of a game to talk about anyway, so I'm sure Jeff enjoyed the night off. But Jeff and I are lifelong Dodger fans just like you, but we've also spent time covering the Dodgers in the locker room and the press box. We're not quite insiders, which could be a good thing, but we're here to bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. So go ahead and take some time to subscribe real quick if you haven't already done so. And let's talk Dodgers. It was not a fun game in Pittsburgh. The Dodgers had won 16 straight games against the Pirates. Based on roster and everything else, you would think that, and pitching matchup and everything else, you would have thought the Dodgers were going to make that 17 in a row, and they didn't. And I'm not sure if it's a. I saw a tweet going around of remember the Dodgers just played 27 innings in 2 days and had to travel and a different time zone and everything else. And I guess that could be a reason for the Dodgers offense to struggle so bad. I don't think it was Jose Quintana suddenly figuring it out. The Dodgers have been able to get to him before. It's just one of those days. We talked about on yesterday's episode about how there's going to be fun days, there's going to be not fun days, and Monday's game was one of the not fun days. A good sign was, or it was just a weird game in general. Julio got the start, ended up going into the seventh inning, but did give up his second run of the day and then came out of the game. It was interesting in the sense that Julio had not struggled throughout the game, but wasn't fooling too many. Had given up, I think, 9 or 10 hits up to that point. He got through the sixth inning after getting out of a jam. Had runners on second and third with nobody out. Ended up getting out of that jam, and he was around, I think, 77 pitches at that point, or yeah, close to 80, 77, I think. And based on what we've seen so far this season, you would have thought that would have been the end for Julio, especially considering, like I said, he had given up 9 to 10 hits at that point. It's not like he was dominating and cruising. He was, pitching a little bit to contact, and the Pirates had some kind of strategy against him because it worked. And I don't know if it was Dave Roberts knowing that they will need some length out of their starting pitchers, knowing that his starting pitchers will have an extra day off because they are going to go with a six-man rotation this time through. Whether it was, I don't know if he reads the LA Times or reads Twitter. If, him pulling Julio early last time had stayed in his mind. But either way, Julio ended up coming out for the seventh, did give up a leadoff home run, and then ended up coming out. It was just, I guess, a evil, fun little twist on, the conversation that there is every time Julio comes out of a game a little bit early. But it didn't matter anyways because the Dodgers offense didn't do anything. They ended up scoring one run. I was on the Edwin Rios home run in the ninth inning after the game was already out of hand. Edwin Rios did not start the game. He came in to hit. And, maybe he was one of the ones that was less tired. I don't think that's a reason for why he hit the home run, but it is something we may talk about a little bit later in this episode, just based on, the person that's currently playing third base majority of the time, and if he maybe shouldn't be doing that a majority of the time. But all in all, it was just one of those days in Pittsburgh. The Dodgers will hopefully bounce back and get back to it on Tuesday, back to their winning ways. Just based on the schedule, since they've had a lot of days off, but they were one, or they're still one of the best teams in terms of winning percentage, but they've played less games than everybody. The Mets, Yankees, and now Angels have all hit 20 games won before the Dodgers. Not that that matters in the grand scheme of things, but just keeping tabs on the other powers that be right now in the first month of the season. But yeah, other than that, I mean, the Dodgers had a chance there late in the game. Gavin Lux got on base. They had Mookie Betts have a little blooper fall in, first and second with one out. And then Freddie Freeman flied out and Trey Turner popped out. And that was the end of that. That was the end of that threat. The next inning, the Pirates ended up scoring more runs. And yeah, it just was not a fun game to watch, other than the fact that it once again came in under 3 hours. So at least the Dodgers are being efficient when they do lose. One bit of news that came out of the game is Chris Taylor came out of the game. I think in the sixth inning after fouling a ball off his knee. He was said to have a bone bruise and day to day. He won't play on Tuesday, and we will continue to monitor that situation. Bone bruises are not the greatest injury to have, just because you don't know, you need to know how or how deep it is or how extensive it is. um it could be something that keeps them out a day or two. It could be something that keeps them out longer. We've seen guys miss a lot of time. It depends, like I said, how deep it is. If it is actual bone bruise or just a contusion on the knee, in the knee area. But we'll continue to monitor that. And, maybe Edwin Rios will get a start at DH, and they'll move some other people around. We'll see what happens. But not the greatest thing. Although, Taylor had been struggling, but he still provides some good stuff on defense. And you never want to see anybody hurt, but that's just the way it goes. That's the wrap up of the game. There wasn't much to talk about other than, like I said, other than Julio Roberts giving him a little bit more leash, maybe when interesting decision. I didn't see anything after the game of why exactly he ended up giving Julio the extra leash, but for the future, it bodes well for him to, you know, I feel like when he's cruising, let him go. When he's not cruising, don't let him go. But hey, it's just a decision. It didn't, like I said, it didn't matter. The Dodgers didn't score that one run until the ninth. That one run probably wouldn't have held up just the way the game was going, anyways. And it just wasn't the Dodgers' night. The Pirates were able to pull out the win. So that's enough about that game. We're going to talk about the Dodgers offense and some stuff that Fabian Ardaya from The Athletic looked up about the offense and just offense across MLB in general. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. That's betonline.net. Go check it out right now. And if you do go check it out, you'll find all the latest odds, all the latest news, all the latest sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. That's all there at betonline.net. Hurry up, go check it out, because they're your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. It's a good time to be in sports right now. There's a lot going on, and you can get it all at betonline.net. Head to the website today on your laptop or mobile device and learn all about the trends, learn all about the action. Bet online, where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. And for your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast with recaps of MLB games with analysis from our local experts. Hint, hint, we may be those local experts sometimes. The Locked On Now podcast takes fans through the season like no other network. The Locked On Podcast Network can do that for you, and it's free and available wherever you get podcasts. All right, we are back, or I am back. And before we get into the offense talk, we seemingly got the confirmation that we are going to see Ryan Pepiot this week. Ryan Pepiot was added to the taxi squad. He's likely to be activated before the game on Wednesday in order to make his MLB debut and start against the Pirates. That was piggybacked by the fact that Erlin threw in a second straight game. So he's not going to get that start. And you would imagine if Pepiot's on the taxi squad, that means he's going to pitch. So Ryan Pepiot debut Wednesday. It's 9:30 a.m. So maybe you need to come into work late, or don't go to work, or just watch at work. I don't know, depending on what your job is. But Ryan Pepiot and his changeup will be making the major league debut on Wednesday, and that's exciting. It's exciting because this is a guy now that we've heard about for a couple years. We got excited about in the last couple years, and a guy who it's still intriguing, at least to me. Some people might feel differently about prospects and how everything plays out with them, but it's intriguing because, well, first of all, pitching prospects, you never really know, but it's, Ryan Pepiot is a little bit different. Walker Buehler coming in, we knew what he was going to be, in terms of he was a top prospect. He was shooting to be a top guy in the rotation. Even Dustin May, while he didn't quite have the prospect hyper status, you see him throwing 102 with that, with all the movement and everything else. And you're like, oh, yeah, he's going to be good. But even then, he wasn't projected necessarily to be a number one or two, and ended up surprising and pitching, looking like he was on the trajectory to be a one or two in the major leagues. Ryan Pepiot's kind of come out of nowhere. He was a name that people may have known in the past. He really ramped up the last two seasons. The changeup was always the bread and butter, the number one pitch for him. But beyond that, it wasn't quite sure, if the fastball would be able to live up to it, or if he'd be able to find that secondary or third pitch, actually. If he was able to find that third pitch in order to make him a successful starter in the majors, or maybe a guy that was going to have to go down to long relief and or relief pitching with a two pitch mix. So he seemingly has that third pitch now with the sweeping slider. He has the changeup. He has a decent fastball, and we're going to get to see it on Wednesday. So I'm excited to see that. And hopefully the Dodgers offense can wake up, because speaking of the Dodgers offense, it's been good compared to the rest of the league, but hasn't necessarily been good compared historically. But that might not be entirely their fault. We've talked about the dead end baseball. We've talked about, maybe why that's happening, or if it's been happening. And you got to imagine that, obviously something's different. There's balls that have been hit so far this year that I know, and it's gonna be kind of a waiting game. We wait till the summer, till it heats up, till the balls are flying a little bit more, and maybe it gets back to normal. But between whatever happened to the baseballs, between humidors being in every stadium now, offense is down to the point. It's down to where it was a long time ago before they moved the pitching mound. So the league OPS through Sunday. This is from an article from Fabian Ardaya of The Athletic. Through Sunday, the league-wide OPS was 676, the lowest since 1968. And the Dodgers collectively have an OPS of 712. They're middle of the pack in home runs, and we've seen some guys. Our diet does a job of looking at WRC plus, which figures in fact, factors in ballpark opponent overall production in comparison to league average. So WRC plus gives you a little bit better look than OPS in terms of, comparing previous seasons. One thing he had in there was that on Sunday, Mookie's OPS was 801, but his WRC plus is 136. So he's been 36% better than the rest of the league. Last year, with he mentioned Cedric Mullins had the same OPS or same WRC plus as Mookie Betts, 136, but his OPS was 878. So clearly there's something different in terms of the offense, in terms of the baseballs, in terms of everything it is. And the Dodgers have seemingly started, I've said seemingly a lot today, have started to make adjustments, or at least Dave Roberts believes they've made adjustments. Dave Roberts said, quote, "The offense is suppressed. So how do you still manage to be offensive and win baseball games?" I think in the last call it 3 or 4 or 5 days. We've hit the ball on the line. We're taking more walks. We try to create things on the bases and not continue to just hit deep fly balls. I credit the hitting guys and the hitters in the box to kind of make that adjustment. And that's something we talked about yesterday in terms of the Dodgers offense. It wasn't a home run fest over the weekend sweeping the Cubs. They did have 3 home runs, but 3 home runs, they weren't all grand slams. And even if they were, that would have been 12 20 runs. They still had to score 8 other runs or 9 other runs, however many it was, 20 or 21. But the Dodgers offense has found ways to score. We've seen that because, like I said, they aren't hitting a lot of home runs and they are getting guys on base and they are pushing it along. They had some walks, bases clearing double the other day with Mookie. They've gotten guys on base. Mookie Betts, one of the league leaders in runs scored. Anytime he gets on base, Freddie Freeman, Trey Turner finding ways to drive him in. And while they're not slugging what they've done in the past, the Dodgers offense hasn't really missed a beat too much. They were, their top 5 or so in runs scored, runs per game. They're up there, and they're continuing to score even though they're not bringing in all those runs. And a little bit, different than Dodger teams we've seen in the past that seem to be reliant on the home run and not, even though the numbers didn't quite bear that out sometimes, was a matter of the Dodgers. A game like yesterday where, struggling to score runs, down 1-0 and 2-0 late in the game, a walk in a home run, single and a home run, whatever it was, a couple guys on base and a home run puts the Dodgers ahead. And you can't really count on that as much this year because you could have somebody hit a ball at 102 miles an hour off the bat at a nice launch angle that would most of the time be a home run, or at least in previous years be a home run, and it'll be caught at the warning track. So I think Brandon Johnson or somebody asked a question last week about hitters changing their approach because of the dead end ball, and we, Jeff and I had kind of said, it's not going to be a whole philosophical change because most of these guys' swings are reinvented, but it's something like Robert said, it's making adjustments. It's, focusing a little bit differently. A guy like Chris Taylor, you're not necessarily going to change his whole swing. He's got his job is to put the ball in the air, but it might be a matter of he's looking for different things at the plate that he knows are going to be give him the ability to hit more of hard contact line drives rather than loft a fly ball and hope it goes over the wall. So it's a matter of maybe they're looking for more fastballs. Maybe they lay off a lot more off-speed pitches, or at least try to. It's adjustments like that. It's adjustments like looking for pitches in certain zones rather than pitch type and stuff like that. We saw Freddie Freeman does a good job of it, of spraying the ball to off fields. He's a guy that's been doing that. I don't expect guys to start hitting it to all fields. But like you said, in certain situations or in certain counts, you might see a guy say, "I'm only going to swing at the balls outside and try to hit it the other way," and that's the whole focus. And you know, strikeouts might come more often because of that, but it's also a matter of that's the way you need to hit in order to win. You're not going to be able to make up for it by hitting a home run. And even mistake pitches these days can get crushed and still not go over the fence. So it's an adjustment in the sense of that. The good thing on the Dodgers side is that their starting pitching and may be benefited by this as well. But the Dodgers starting pitching and pitching in general has been pretty lights out the entire season, Monday notwithstanding. And the Dodgers' margin for error in terms of scoring runs isn't that high because they only have to put up 3-4 runs a game for the most part, and that's going to be enough for the win. So it helps out, obviously, on the pitching side. The Dodgers have been able to suppress hard contact. But the thing is, the Dodgers are suppressing that hard contact. Where on the offensive side, they are hitting the ball hard. I think they're still top 5 in hard hit percentage. They're top 5 or number 1 in chase percentage, not chasing balls out of the zone. So the Dodgers' offensive philosophy hasn't quite changed in that sense. They've been that the last 5-6 years. But it's a matter of maybe they're making those small adjustments in order to search for a base hit to pass the baton, as we were saying, instead of going for that big home run. And the home runs are going to come. I do think once the weather starts heating up in a lot of these places that we are going to see a little bit of an uptick in the offense, or maybe MLB starts throwing juice baseballs back into it. I don't know. But either way, I'm looking forward to the Dodgers offense continuing to do what they've been doing because they've been doing well. And if the starting pitching and pitching staff can keep that going the way they've been going, Dodgers are going to be successful, and that's what we expect out of them. So enough about the offense, and now we're going to go to someone specifically in the offense, Justin Turner. But first, let's talk about Rock Auto. Because this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. And what is Rock Auto? Well, they're a website where you can save money on auto parts and truck parts and not have to go to a store to do so. Why choose to spend up to 100% more for the same parts, auto parts from a chain store car dealership? Why I have to walk into a store? They're not going to have the parts. It's hard to have parts for every single car and model that's out there these days. All they're going to do is order it. They're going to try to order it to the store to get it cheaper for you. But then you're going to have to go back to the store again. You can just go to rockauto.com, get it, look for everything you need, and get it sent directly to you. And that's all you got to do. You're not going to get charged more because you're not a mechanic or you're not from a car dealership. You're going to get charged the same as everybody else, and you'll be supporting a family business that's been serving people online for over 20 years. They have everything you need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. Go to rockauto.com, check it out. It's an easy to navigate website. Everything's right there for you. And if the "How did you hear about us" box pops up, write "Locked On" in that box and let them know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. Okay, I don't think we've done a dedicated Justin Turner segment yet. I know we've talked about him a lot, but as the calendar turns into the first full month of the season and past it, and it is concerning about Justin Turner. Obviously, there's other concerns in the Dodger offense. Max Muncy is one of those other concerns. Cody Bellinger has cooled off a little. Gavin Lux has cooled off a little, but they still contribute here and there. And Justin Turner, first month of the season has historically been bad for him power-wise, but not necessarily offensively in total. And the first month of the season here for Justin Turner has been bad offensively and power wise. He does have the one home run. He has driven in 13 runs, but other than that, everything else is down. His OPS is 468. He's slugging just 242. His on base percentage is 226, and he's batting 168. Um, and yeah, he hasn't looked great. The Dodgers have kept him around the middle of the order. They did move him when Will Smith starts. Will Smith has been starting in the 4 spot now, and Justin Turner has been moved down to 5 or 6. But there's been a couple of times in the last week where Smith sat and Justin Turner was back in the 4 spot. And I'm not sure how much longer the Dodgers will be able to do this. Obviously, they're still successful even without Justin Turner hitting that great. But it's a matter of, as it gets deeper into it, if the Padres keep playing well, if the Giants keep playing well, the Dodgers may have to make a change in order to keep up with them. I mean, they're on top right now, but I'm just saying, like, they're not going to be able to get away with a guy with the 468 OPS batting in the top half of the lineup that much longer. And you look at the peripherals for Justin Turner, and I mean, it's hard hit percentage is down. His max exit velocity is not that bad, but that doesn't mean too much because he could just hit a few balls hard. It's hard hit percentage. He's not hitting the ball hard a lot of the time. He's in the 21st percentile there. His average exit velocity is even worse in the 18th percentile. And really, the main thing I was going from is he's not swinging and missing that often. Although at times you kind of want him to swing and miss at least, so he wouldn't hit into a double play. He's hit into a few double plays this year, and it's concerning for Turner in the fact that he's 37 now. I don't know. Last year he had a really good year. Came into the season hot, and then faded a little bit toward the end, and then got hurt later on. But it's just you don't know. And I guess the one thing, it's still concerning, obviously, but um, he's still hitting the fastball the best. But even that, hitting fastball the best, he's hitting 200 with the slugging percentage of 320. So it's not like he is hitting the fastball well. He's just hitting it better than he's hitting breaking and off speed pitches. And it's not like he's getting unlucky. I mean, even his expected batting average is barely in the 250s. Even his expected slugging is a little bit better on fastballs at 539, but it's not like he's getting unlucky. He's just not hitting the ball as hard as he has before, and it's you look at it and you're trying to figure out why, and you look right here at his numbers and you can see why he's grounding out, or not grounding out, but hitting ground balls at a higher clip than in his career. 42% of the time he's hitting a ground ball. He's never been above. With the Dodgers, he's been as high as 37%, and that was back in 2015. But now he's got that up to 42%. You look at live drive percentage; he's hitting the line drive only 16.7% of the time. The lowest he's had since 2015 is 24.5%, which was last year, and that's an 8% difference right there. And that's really where it's sitting at, is that ground ball and line drive percentage. His fly ball percentage has um, gone up, but it's not anything. 37% of the time hitting a fly ball isn't the worst thing, but it's that line drive percentage, that 8% difference right there, where it went from ground ball to line drive, or it went from line drive to foul ball, and that's where the big difference is. And like I said, I don't know if it's something that Turner can. I'm not sure if it's a matter of age at this point, if it's a matter of mechanics on his end, if it's a matter of I don't know. And that's the bad part with Justin Turner, with guys like even Trey Turner, who's been struggling a little bit lately. You expect him to get it going just because there's nothing realistically that should keep him from hitting well. Mookie Betts, we knew he'd get it going eventually, because there's nothing realistically that should prevent him from doing this. With Justin Turner, the age could be a thing. We've seen older players get phased out a little bit in the last few years, not getting the deals that they were before. He still got that deal, but like I said, he was coming off a year last year where he had his best start ever to the season, and was borderline all-star. And he's coming out the gate here and not looking good. And obviously it's no knock on Turner in terms of work ethic or anything like that. He doesn't want to be as bad as he's been. He's working to figure it out. But the question is, how long can the Dodgers allow him to be in the lineup every day figuring it out? Now, this is not a recency bias, because Edwin Rios did hit a home run on Monday, but getting him more at bats isn't because of that home run he hit on Monday. It's just a matter of, can he be better than what Justin Turner is giving you right now? At least against right-handers sometimes. At least against right-handers sometimes, get Edwin Rios in there and, maybe give Justin a day off. For the most part, Turner's been at third or been at DH, and it's hard because, Justin Turner can hit, or has been able to hit up to this point. But you don't know if he's going to get it back. And like I said, for the Dodgers, knowing what happened last year, I don't think the Giants are going to win 107 games, but they are going to be competitive enough to keep the Dodgers honest. The Padres are being competitive enough to keep the Dodgers honest, and I think that will continue throughout the year. And in years past, there wasn't necessarily a contender in the NL West to keep the Dodgers honest. They were able to get away with guys in the lineup maybe a little bit longer than need be. We saw it with Chris Taylor in the past. We've seen it with other guys in the past. We saw it in 2018 up to a point, and then the Dodgers realized, oh, we need to change this because it's not working, and we have somebody fighting with us for the division. That was the Rockies at the time. And we saw those line shifts, as we used to call them back then, with the platoons, the lefty line shifts, the righty line shifts, whenever the starter came out. So, obviously it's 1 month in. I don't think the Dodgers are going to make that change now. But 1 month turns into 2 months real fast, and 2 months of the same production. If you get another month out of that same production from Justin Turner, then it's definitely a conversation you have to have. It's definitely a matter of, does Edwin Rios get more at bats? Do we bring someone up to get more at bats? Do we try Miguel Vargas? And it's not something like, so I want Justin Turner to hit. I want him to be hitting. I want him to do well. But is it not going to happen? And that's the big question. So Keep an eye on Turner. Hopefully, some of this stuff turns around. Hopefully, he figures it out. We don't have to have this conversation again, but it is a conversation for sure to monitor, and that's what we're going to do here at Locked On Dodgers is monitor the situation. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Max Muncy if he doesn't get it going quite in the next week or so. That's probably the next guy on the list of okay, let's figure out what's wrong with him. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. If you need something else on your daily docket of podcasts, check out Locked On MLB with Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. He brings you a unique perspective on the major leagues past and present. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. You can find Jeff on Twitter at Snider. You can find me at Samperio. You can get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com. You can get a hold of us via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.